Winston Churchill said, "We shape our buildings, and afterwards our buildings shape us." He was arguing in favor of rebuilding the bombed-out House of Commons to its original specifications and capacity, which had served him well. Buildings are shaped by architects who draw from their own experience. Their products, the buildings in which we live, work, and dream, certainly shape us. I think that goes for software too, so I'd like to tell you about two architects who shape the way I think about systems design. The first is Louis Sullivan, one of the most influential architects of the 19th century, best known for his work with skyscrapers. Sadly, despite his early fame and influence, Sullivan was a destitute alcoholic when he died in 1924, and his funeral was funded by his most prominent student, Frank Lloyd Wright. In 1896, though, near the height of his career, Sullivan wrote that form follows function, that the function of an object, living or an artifact, should be reflected in its form. That function may be practical or aesthetic. The relationship between form and function is enduring. Sullivan's thoughts on design should be required reading for anyone who designs or depends on software. The second architect who shaped my thinking is Christopher Alexander. His 1977 book, A Pattern Language, generated a lot of interest in the software engineering community in the 1990s and beyond. It influenced the design of the first wiki, which begat Wikipedia, and papers and books on software patterns can invariably be traced back to Alexander's work. Alexander's team codified patterns from around the world that had withstood the test of time to support what he called the timeless way of building. Each pattern provides a framework that can be instantiated to suit the user. For example, Pattern 112 deals with ways to mark the transition between the outside and inside of a house. It could be instantiated with wood, slate, carpeting, etc., or with a change in elevation or lighting. Before the software pattern movement, I used several patterns from this book when I was building a home in Raleigh, North Carolina in the 1980s. That was my favorite house of anywhere I've ever lived. Everything was perfect. For me. I lost more money on that house than on any other property I've ever owned. Everything was a fit for me, but it wasn't consistent with North Carolina market taste in the 1980s. Instantiating the patterns with different choices would probably have made a huge difference. The house was built for me, not for me to sell. My interest in Alexander's work actually started a decade earlier with a book I picked up at the Harvard Coop in 1978 and assigned in AI and software engineering classes in the 80s. It was Notes on the Synthesis of Form. Alexander took a much more formal approach to form than Sullivan, defining it as a part of the world over which we have control and which we decide to shape while leaving the rest of the world as it is. Shaping a part of the world reminded me of Churchill's comment, "For someone just starting out in software design, form sure sounded like an application to me." He said anything in the world that makes demands on the form is context. So in my diagram, everything outside the context is irrelevant to the form or to the design. That gives us a good start on identifying users and use cases. And here's the part that brought it all home. Defining fitness as a relationship between form and context. That makes design a problem of satisfying the demands each makes on the other. The goal of design then, for a teapot or an enterprise application, is to make the user experience with the interface frictionless, and to have the interface require minimum effort from the form. How does this help us design intelligent enterprises today? If we consider an intelligent enterprise defined by these three characteristics to be the form, and the external parties that put demands on the form, especially suppliers and customers, to be the context, then the design challenge is to ensure fitness to purpose such that the interface, the green ring around the enterprise, provides frictionless value to all types of users in a form that reveals its function. In a modern intelligent enterprise, that ring may consist of intelligent edge devices with sensors. Fitness, then, is a function of the way the system and its users perceive the interface, specifically the way they both interact with edge assets. In my favorite edge example, we have a Coke machine that's capable of autonomous decision-making based on data from sensors, streams, and stores. It has internal functions and can access machine-to-machine data, but the true measure of quality, Alexander's fitness, is the level of friction between the edge asset and the outside world or context. The goal of minimizing that friction helps us to define appropriate design processes and evaluation criteria. We'll close with a couple of our own patterns for building the intelligent enterprise. The first is meant to reflect Sullivan's form ever follows function maxim. If you're having a conversation with someone and you answer before they finish asking a question, they might think you're a genius. More likely, they'll think you're a rude jerk who's put no thought into an answer. Systems may be able to virtually eliminate latency if the data, reasoning, and authority are all close to the edge. That doesn't mean that all latency that can be eliminated should be eliminated. Perhaps the actual time to answer or take action should vary according to the expectations about the relative complexity of a task. The second pattern reflects our belief that people should interact with an intelligent enterprise the way they interact with an intelligent person. In a conversation, every utterance should lead to greater understanding, and nothing should be repeated unless it's for emphasis or clarification. Interaction with multiple systems in a single session or over multiple sessions should be transparent to qualify as a good fit, which means that the devices at the edge and any internal applications with which they communicate should be updated in real time. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for updates and contact us with your own patterns to advance the dialogue.